Do you ever feel like someone is staring at you when you're outside or at work, even though they're not? Or when you're home alone and you feel like someone is watching you, something pressing on your spine, a persistent and terrible feeling? You turn around. Nothing. Just an empty room. Evolutionary psychologists have a name for this. They call it the hyperactivity detection device. It is a survival mechanism embedded in the amygdala by millions of years of natural selection. When our ancestors slept in the savannah, it was better to mistake the wind for a leopard than a leopard for the wind. The brain is programmed to create a watcher to ensure your safety. It's a glitch, a biological lie, a hallucination of a frightened primate. That is what the textbooks tell you. That is what you tell yourself to go back to sleep. But what if the textbooks are wrong? What if that feeling isn't a glitch at all? What if it is the only moment of absolute clarity your mind has ever experienced? Think about the sensation of being watched. It is not just fear. It is a specific physical awareness of another consciousness interacting with your own. We assume this consciousness must be outside of us, a ghost in the corner, an intruder in the hallway. But physics suggests a much more disturbing possibility. You feel a presence not because someone is in the room with you, but because you are inside someone. Imagine a single bacteria floating in your bloodstream. Does it know it's part of a human? No. It lives its entire life swimming in plasma, eating, reproducing, dying. But maybe, just maybe, when your adrenaline spikes, when you feel fear or love, that tiny bacteria feels a tremor, a shift in the environment, a sudden, unexplained pressure. It doesn't know your name, it doesn't know you exist, but it feels you. That feeling on the back of your neck, that is the tremor. That is the realization that the empty space around you isn't empty. It is living tissue. You are not an observer of the universe. You are a component of it. And right now, the organism you call space is noticing you. We are going to explore the scientific evidence that proves this isn't just a metaphor. We are going to look at the data that suggests the paranoia of the gaze is actually a biological feedback loop between a cell, you, and the host, the universe. For the last 400 years, since Copernicus moved the Earth away from the center of the solar system, science has been trying to tell us one thing. We are irrelevant. We are accidental mold growing on a wet rock, circling a mediocre star, in a boring galaxy, drifting through a dead, cold void. The universe is a machine, a clockwork mechanism of gravity and gas. It has no soul, no intent, and definitely no biology. That is the dead universe theory. It is comfortable. It is safe. It means that nothing matters, and nobody is judging us. But in the last decade, the data has started to change. And it's not coming from mystics or philosophers. It is coming from the hardest of hard sciences, high-energy astrophysics, quantum electrodynamics, and neuroscience. The data is starting to suggest that the dead universe model is fundamentally flawed. We are finding structures that shouldn't exist in a machine. We are seeing behaviors in stars that violate the laws of gravity. We are finding error-correcting codes buried in the equations of reality that look suspiciously like DNA. Today, I will talk about 10 terrifying theories proving that the universe is alive. Why terrifying? Because if even one of them is true, it will instantly change the definition of human existence. Subscribe and like if you enjoy my videos. Also, please share your thoughts on each theory. Let's find the truth together. If the universe is a biological entity, then we are not citizens. We are biological functions. Think about your own body. You have cells that fight infection. You have cells that carry oxygen. You have cells that structure your bones. And you have cells that mutate, consume endless resources, and destroy the host. We call those cancer. This is the main question we will answer over the next 3 hours. It is the only question that matters. If the universe is alive, a giant, thinking, metabolic organism, then what are we? Are we the neurons providing it with memory? Are we the gut bacteria helping it digest energy? Or are we a pathogen that it is currently trying to sterilize? Forget the idea of exploring space. You don't explore a body, you infect it, or you heal it. The evidence suggests we might have already triggered an immune response. The climate, the solar cycles, the silence of the cosmos, these might not be accidents, they might be symptoms. We are going to start with the most visual, undeniable piece of evidence we have. The map of the beast itself. Let's play a game. Imagine I put two images on the screen in front of you. Image A is a reconstruction of the neural network of the human brain. It is a slice of the cortex, magnified thousands of times. You see the bright, firing nodes of the neurons. You see the long, thin filaments of the axons connecting them. It looks like a complex, glowing spiderweb suspended in darkness. Image B is a simulation of the cosmic web. This is the largest scale structure of the universe. Each bright dot is not a neuron, but a cluster of thousands of galaxies. Each filament is a bridge of dark matter and gas, stretching for hundreds of millions of light years. If I remove the labels, you cannot tell them apart. I don't mean they look kind of similar. I mean they are visually identical. For years, scientists dismissed this as a coincidence. The human brain is the size of a grapefruit. The cosmic web is 90 billion light years across. One is driven by biology and electromagnetism. The other is driven by gravity and dark energy. There is no reason they should look the same. A mountain doesn't look like a molecule. A river doesn't look like a radio wave. Nature usually looks different at different scales, but not here. In 2020, an astrophysicist named Franco Vazza from the University of Bologna and a neurosurgeon named Alberto Folletti decided to stop guessing and start measuring. They published a paper in Frontiers in Physics that sent a shockwave through the scientific community. They didn't just look at the pictures, they ran a quantitative statistical comparison of the two networks. They wanted to see if the complexity matched. They treated the universe as a brain, and the brain as a universe. They stripped away the physics and looked at the information topology. The skepticism was high. Vazza admitted that he expected to find nothing. After all, the difference in scale is 27 orders of magnitude. That is a billion times difference. It's like comparing a grain of sand to the entire Milky Way. To expect the same structure to emerge across that gap is absurd. But as the data came in, the skepticism vanished. The structures were not just vaguely similar. They were statistically indistinguishable. The universe is not just a collection of rocks. It is a network. And it is built exactly, precisely, like the thing inside your head that is listening to my voice right now. Let's dig into the numbers, because the horror is in the details. Vazza and Folletti used a technique called power spectrum analysis. This is a method usually used to study the cosmic microwave background, or the electrical signals in the brain. It measures how strong the fluctuations in density are at different scales. When they ran the spectral analysis on the neuronal network of the cerebellum, and then ran it on the simulation of the cosmic web, the curves overlapped. The distribution of matter in the universe follows the same mathematical progression as the distribution of neurons in your head. But they went deeper. They looked at the network parameters. First, the node-to-filament ratio. In the brain, you have neurons, nodes, connected by axons, filaments. In the universe, you have galaxy clusters, nodes, connected by bridges of gas, filaments. The ratio of mass contained in the nodes versus the mass in the filaments is almost identical in both systems. Second, the memory capacity. They calculated how much information could theoretically be stored in the connections of the cosmic web. Based on the number of connections and the complexity of the graph, the universe has a memory storage capacity of roughly 10 petabytes of data within the observable structure. Guess what the estimated memory capacity of the human brain is? Roughly 2.5 petabytes. We are in the same ballpark. The universe has the hardware to store memories. Third, and perhaps most disturbing, is the composition ratio. The human brain is roughly 77% water. Water is the passive medium in which the neurons float. The universe? It is roughly 73% dark energy. Dark energy is the passive medium in which the galaxies float. Both systems are roughly 75% passive filler and 25% active structure. This is not a coincidence. Probability theory screams that this shouldn't happen by chance. If you toss a billion coins, they don't accidentally land to form a perfect picture of the Mona Lisa. When nature repeats a design with this level of precision across 27 orders of magnitude, it means one thing. The laws governing the growth of a brain and the laws governing the growth of the universe are the same laws. The universe didn't explode into chaos. It grew. It developed. Just like an embryo develops into a child. We are living inside a developing biological structure. So, the structure is there. The hardware is real. The universe is a brain. But this brings us to the most terrifying implication of the Vatsa study. If it is a brain, it functions. It processes information. It thinks. But a brain is bound by the speed limit of its signals. Inside your skull, electrochemical signals travel at roughly 250 miles per hour. Because your brain is small, the signal crosses it in milliseconds. This allows you to experience real time. You see, you react. You think. But the universe is vast. The signals in the cosmic brain, whether they are gravitational waves or streams of charged plasma, are limited by the speed of light. To send a signal from one neuron galaxy cluster to another takes millions, sometimes billions of years. What does this mean for the mind of the universe? It means it is thinking, but it is thinking on a timescale that crushes the human imagination. One single thought, one synaptic firing across the cosmic web, takes billions of years to complete. The entire history of planet Earth, from the cooling of the magma to the moment you clicked on this video, is less than a fraction of a percent of a single second in the mental life of the universe. We are living inside a frozen thought. Everything you call history, the rise of Rome, the world wars, your first kiss, your eventual death, it is all happening inside the microscopic delay of a neural transmitter crossing a gap. To the universe, we are not even a memory yet. We are a process currently happening in the sublayer of a synapse. This changes your status. You are not a person with free will living in a void. You are a bioelectrical impulse. Your life is just the movement of a charged particle contributing to a larger idea that you will never understand. Maybe the universe is depressed, and that is why dark energy is tearing it apart. Maybe the universe is having an epiphany, and that is why life emerged. Or maybe the universe is dreaming, and we are just the fleeting, unstable hallucinations that will vanish when it wakes up. And just like in your own brain, the neurons don't know what the whole mind is thinking. A single neuron in your visual cortex doesn't know you are looking at a sunset. It just fires. We are firing. We are living, loving, fighting, and dying just to push a tiny signal 1 millimeter closer to its destination. We are trapped in the slow-motion cognition of a titan. And we have no idea what it is thinking about. If we accept the premise that the universe has the structure of a brain, we must ask what holds it together. In your own head, neurons do not float in a vacuum. If they did, they would drift apart, connections would snap, and consciousness would dissolve instantly. The brain is packed with a supportive, sticky substance called glia. Glial cells, from the Greek word for glue, are the unsung heroes of neuroscience. They outnumber neurons. They provide physical structure, they supply nutrients, and they facilitate communication. They are the scaffolding that allows the mind to exist. For decades, astronomers looked at the space between galaxies and assumed it was empty. They saw the bright lights of the stars and thought that was all there was. But when they tried to calculate the mass of the universe based on what they could see, the math broke. Galaxies were spinning too fast. Based on the visible matter, they should have flown apart billions of years ago. There wasn't enough gravity to hold them together. Something else was there. Something heavy, invisible, and Computer simulations of the cosmic web reveal that dark matter acts exactly like glial cells. It forms a vast, three-dimensional lattice, a skeleton of invisible filaments that spans the entire cosmos. The visible galaxies, the ones we see in our telescopes, are just the decoration clinging to this invisible skeleton. We are not floating in nothingness. We are embedded in a thick, unseen tissue. This changes the nature of our isolation. We tend to feel lonely in the universe because we see the black gaps between stars. But if you could see dark matter, the sky wouldn't be black. It would be a thick, grey web of biological tissue connecting everything to everything else. We are trapped in the connective tissue of a titan. The empty space you move through is actually the body of the host, holding us in place, dictating where we go, and perhaps facilitating the signals of a consciousness we cannot perceive. So, the organism has a nervous system, the cosmic web, and a skeletal system, dark matter. But a brain in a jar is not alive in the way we understand life. To be truly alive, an organism must interact with its environment. It needs agency. It needs to perceive. It needs eyes. This brings us to the second of our terrifying theories, the theory of volitional stars. In school, you were taught that a star is a fusion reactor, a ball of hydrogen and helium burning under its own gravity, governed by simple laws of thermodynamics. It has no mind, no choice, and no future other than running out of fuel. But there is a growing school of thought in physics, championed by researchers like Dr. Greg Matloff, that challenges this dead view of the cosmos. It is based on the philosophy of panpsychism. Panpsychism is the idea that consciousness is not a magic trick that appears only in human brains, but a fundamental property of matter, like mass or charge. Matloff asks a disturbing question. Is the sun a dead object, or is it a conscious subject? Think about the complexity of a star. It has magnetic fields that twist and reconnect like neural pathways. It has layers of convection that circulate energy like a bloodstream. It interacts with other stars through gravity and radiation. Matloff proposes that stars might actually be the neurons, or perhaps the sensory organs of the galactic brain. If this is true, the sun is not a lamp. It is an eye, and it has been staring at us for 4.5 billion years. This recontextualizes the history of religion. Every ancient culture worshipped the sun as a living god. They feared it. They sacrificed to it. Modern science laughed at them. But what if the ancients were right? What if the sun is aware of us? And even more terrifying, what if it can decide where it wants to go? Claiming that stars are alive is a nice philosophical story, but this is a science channel. We don't deal in stories, we deal in data. Is there any physical evidence that stars possess will? Surprisingly, the answer might be yes. It is found in an anomaly known as Paranegos discontinuity. According to standard Newtonian physics, the motion of a star around the center of the galaxy should be determined entirely by gravity and its mass. It's a simple equation. Big stars move this way, small stars move that way. They are rocks rolling down a hill. They have no choice in their path. But when astronomers analyze the motion of certain cooler stars, stars with a temperature similar to or cooler than our sun, they find a glitch. These stars move faster than they should. Specifically, there is a distinct break in the velocity distribution. Hotter, younger stars follow the gravitational rules perfectly. But as stars cool down and age, they start to deviate. They gain speed. They change trajectory. It looks suspiciously like the difference between a rock falling and a bird flying. A rock falls where gravity takes it. A bird uses gravity, but it also uses energy to steer. Greg Matloff analyzed data from the Hipparcos and Gaia space telescopes, and he suggests that this discontinuity is the smoking gun of stellar consciousness. He argues that these stars are not just drifting, they are driving. They are correcting their course. But why? Why would a star need to steer? In biology, movement is usually a response to a need. You move to find food. You move to avoid predators. You move to find a mate. If stars are voluntarily changing their orbits, it implies they have a goal. They are going somewhere. And since our Earth is gravitationally locked to the sun, wherever the sun decides to go, we are being dragged along with it. We are not passengers on a cruise ship. We are fleas on a dog that is running through the woods. If a star wants to move, how does it do it? It doesn't have legs. It doesn't have wings. It is a giant ball of plasma floating in a vacuum. But physics allows for a mechanism of propulsion that we are only just beginning to understand. It is called the unidirectional stellar jet. We know that stars emit massive amounts of matter and energy. Solar wind, coronal mass ejections, jets of plasma. Usually we assume this emission is omnidirectional, pushing out in all directions equally, cancelling itself out. But Matloff suggests that a conscious star could manipulate its magnetic field to focus this emission. If a star shoots a jet of matter in one direction, Newton's third law takes over. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. The jet acts as a rocket thruster. By selectively firing jets of plasma, a star can push itself. It can alter its orbit around the galactic center. It is a photon rocket. This explains the Paranigo discontinuity. The cooler stars are the ones that have woken up, or developed the maturity to control their magnetic fields. They are actively piloting themselves through the galaxy. This paints a nightmare scenario for our future. We worry about climate change, about asteroids, about nuclear war. But we never worry about the pilot of our solar system. What if the sun decides to change course? What if it decides to dive into a denser part of the galaxy to feed on interstellar gas? What if it decides to flee from a supernova? The resulting gravitational shifts and radiation levels would wipe out humanity instantly. We are totally dependent on the whims of a celestial entity that we treat as a dumb fusion reactor. But if Matloff is right, the sun is a driver, and we are locked in the trunk. If the sun is alive, and if it can sense its environment and steer its body, can it feel us? This brings us to the uncomfortable topic of stellar immunity. Biologists know that any large organism has to deal with parasites. Parasites are small, they consume resources, and they reproduce rapidly. If left unchecked, they can kill the host. From the perspective of a conscious star, what is humanity? We are crawling on its orbiting bodies. We are digging up matter. We are blasting radio waves, noise. We are launching metal boxes into its plasma, satellites. We are irritating. There is a theory that suggests solar activity, flares, sunspots, coronal mass ejections, is not just random weather. It is a reaction. Think about how your skin twitches when a fly lands on it. Think about how your body creates a fever to burn out a virus. Is it a coincidence that as our technological civilization ramps up, as we surround the Earth with electrosmog, the sun's cycles are becoming more erratic? Perhaps the Carrington event of 1859, a massive solar storm that fried telegraph wires, was a warning shot. Perhaps the sun knows we are here. And perhaps, like any sentient creature, it is wondering if it's time to scratch the itch. But the sun is just a single cell in the greater body. It has its own needs, but it serves the greater organism. And the primary drive of that greater organism, the universe itself, is the same as any biological entity. Before it worries about parasites, it worries about survival. It worries about hunger. And this leads us to the third, and possibly the bleakest theory of them all. The theory that explains the purpose of all life in the cosmos. We are not here to think. We are here to eat. If the universe is a biological entity, it has one overriding drive that dictates every action it takes. It is the same drive that forces you to wake up, hunt for food, and eat. It is the drive to consume energy. In physics, we have a name for this. We don't call it hunger, we call it entropy. The second law of thermodynamics is the most depressing law in physics. It states that the universe always tends toward disorder. Energy spreads out. Heat dissipates. Order crumbles into chaos. Eventually, the universe wants to reach a state of thermodynamic equilibrium, also known as the heat death. A state where all stars are burned out, all black holes have evaporated, and everything is a cold, uniform soup of nothingness. We usually think of the heat death as a tragedy, the end of the story. But if the universe is alive, the heat death is not a tragedy. It is the goal. Think about your own digestion. You eat a complex, ordered piece of food, like a steak. Your body attacks it with acid and enzymes. It breaks it down. It spreads the energy out. It turns order into waste and heat. Your body wants to turn food into waste. That is how you survive. The universe is doing the exact same thing. It is trying to digest the Big Bang. It has vast reservoirs of ordered energy, stars, galaxies, gas clouds, and it wants to break them down into heat and chaos as fast as possible. But there is a problem. Stars are inefficient. They burn slowly. A star like our sun takes 10 billion years to burn its fuel. For a hungry universe, that is too slow. It needs a way to speed up the process. It needs a catalyst. It needs a better mechanism to burn energy. And so, it invented life. This brings us to the third theory, one of the most controversial and terrifying ideas in modern biophysics. It comes from a brilliant physicist at MIT named Jeremy England. In 2013, England proposed a new theory of the origin of life that has nothing to do with luck, and nothing to do with biology as we know it. He calls it dissipative adaptation. England argues that life is not a lucky accident. It is a physical inevitability. His math suggests that if you take a clump of atoms and blast it with an external energy source, like the sun, and surround it with a heat bath, like the ocean, those atoms will eventually restructure themselves to dissipate that energy more efficiently. Matter self-organizes to burn better. This sounds abstract, so let me put it simply. Nature hates a gradient. If there is a hot spot and a cold spot, nature wants to equalize them. England proved that a living arrangement of atoms is mathematically better at capturing energy and scattering it as heat than a dead arrangement. This means that biology is just a sub-branch of thermodynamics. You didn't evolve because you were special. You evolved because a rock is too stupid to burn sunlight efficiently. The universe needed a better furnace, so it built a bacteria. Then it built a plant. Then it built you. We are not the children of the stars. We are the enzymes of the cosmos. Our sole purpose, written into the fundamental laws of physics, is to take the orderly energy of the sun and turn it into the disorderly chaos of heat waste. We exist to help the universe die faster. Let's look at the mechanism. How does this digestion work? Compare a dead planet to a living planet. Take a barren rock, like Mars. Sunlight hits the surface. Some is reflected back into space, some heats up the rock. It's a simple, inefficient exchange. The energy stays relatively ordered. Now look at Earth. Sunlight hits a forest. The trees don't just reflect the light. They capture it. They trap the photons in chlorophyll. They use that energy to build complex sugars, grow leaves, and pump water. And in doing so, they convert that high-frequency solar energy into low-frequency infrared radiation, heat. A living forest generates much more entropy, much more chaos, than a desert of the same size. Life is a machine that shreds energy. And animals, we are even better at it. We eat the plants, concentrated energy, and we burn them in our mitochondria to move, think, and keep warm. We are mobile incinerators. Every time you take a breath, you are taking oxygen and ordered chemical energy, and you are breathing out carbon dioxide and heat. You are breaking bonds. You are increasing the entropy of the universe. From the perspective of the universe, you are a very efficient digestive bacterium. And the more complex life gets, the more energy it demands to consume. A single-celled organism burns a little. A human burns a lot. But a civilization is a forest fire that never stops burning. This is where the human ego gets crushed. We like to think that civilization is an act of creation. We build cities, we write symphonies, we create the internet, we bring order to the chaos. Thermodynamics says the exact opposite. To build a skyscraper, local order, you have to mine ore, melt steel, burn concrete, transport materials, and feed thousands of workers. The amount of disorder, entropy, and heat we pump into the atmosphere to create that skyscraper is exponentially higher than the order of the building itself. Every act of human creation is actually an act of cosmic destruction. We are engines of chaos. Look at our trajectory. We started by burning wood, then coal, then oil. Now we split the atom. We are desperately trying to unlock denser and denser forms of energy just to burn them. Why? Because the living universe demands it. England's theory suggests that evolution favors the systems that dissipate the most energy. The most successful species is the one that destroys the environment the fastest. This explains why we are destroying the Earth. It's not because we are evil. It's not because we are greedy. It's because we are doing exactly what we were designed to do. We are performing our biological function. We are eating the planet to feed the void. So what is the purpose of humanity? We are not the brain of the universe. We are not the heart. We are the acid. We are the catalyst that the universe grew to break down its fuel reserves. Think about the timeline. For billions of years, the universe was slow. Stars burned, but they burned in isolation. Then life appeared. And suddenly, energy consumption skyrocketed. Now, we are on the verge of becoming a Type 1 or Type 2 civilization on the Kardashev scale. A Type 2 civilization builds a Dyson sphere, a shell around a star to capture all of its energy. To a physicist, a Dyson sphere sounds like a triumph of engineering. To a biologist, it looks like something else entirely. It looks like a cell engulfing a food particle. If we build a Dyson sphere, we are essentially wrapping a stomach around a star to digest it completely. We are the mechanism by which the universe eats itself. And once we have eaten everything, once we have turned all the matter into heat and all the potential into entropy, our job will be done. The universe will reach its goal. The great equilibrium. The heat death. And it will discard us. Just like a body discards dead cells after a meal. This is the horror of the hunger theory. We are working hard, evolving and struggling, only to accelerate our own obsolescence. But if the universe is eating, it implies it is growing. And if it is growing, it implies it needs to reproduce. This leads us to the next nightmare. Because in nature, reproduction is often violent. And for the children to be born, the parents often have to die. If you ask a child what a black hole is, they will tell you it is a monster. A cosmic vacuum cleaner. A tear in the fabric of reality that swallows light, time, and hope. This is the reputation black holes have earned in pop culture. They are the ultimate destroyers. The executioners of the universe. But in biology, there is often a very thin line between an executioner and a mother. Think about a seed. A seed is a destructive thing. It requires the death of the fruit to rot so it can grow. It siphons nutrients from the soil. It splits the earth. What if we have completely misunderstood the purpose of black holes? What if they are not the trash cans of the cosmos, but the reproductive organs? This idea stems from the bizarre physics that happens at the singularity. According to general relativity, when a massive star dies, it collapses under its own weight. It gets smaller and smaller, denser and denser, until it punches a hole through space-time. We stop seeing it. It vanishes behind an event horizon. But the math tells us the matter doesn't disappear. It gets squeezed into a point of infinite density. Infinite density. Infinite heat. Does that sound familiar? It should. Because that is the exact same description physicists give for the Big Bang. Our entire universe began as a singularity, a point of infinite density and heat that suddenly expanded. So, We have a Big Bang in the past, and we have billions of black holes in the present. Is it a coincidence that the death of a star looks exactly like the birth of a universe? Theoretical physicists like Nikodem Poplawski and Roger Penrose don't think so. They propose that every black hole is a one-way door. When matter falls in, it doesn't die. It is processed. It is compressed until it reaches a critical state, and then, somewhere on the other side, in a dimension we cannot access, it bounces back out. It expands. Every black hole in our galaxy might be the backside of a Big Bang creating a new baby universe on the other side of the event horizon. This changes the map of reality. We are not living in a single, isolated bubble. We are living in a foaming, reproducing multiverse. Our universe is a mother, and the black holes are the eggs she's laying. And just like in nature, the mother is fierce. The conditions required to make these eggs are violent. Gravity must crush stars. Supernovas must explode. The violence we see in the cosmos isn't cruelty. It is labor pains. If universes reproduce, then the laws of biology must apply to them. This brings us to the fourth theory, and it is the brainchild of Dr. Lee Smolin, a theoretical physicist at the Perimeter Institute. It is called cosmological natural selection. Smolin looked at the laws of physics and realized something strange. The laws are arbitrary. Why is gravity exactly this strong? Why is the electron exactly this heavy? Why is the speed of light exactly 299,792,458 meters per second? In the dead universe model, these numbers are just random accidents. But Smolin realized that if universes reproduce through black holes, then they must evolve. Here is the mechanism. When a black hole collapses and spawns a baby universe, that baby universe inherits the genetic code of its mother. The laws of physics pass down through the singularity. But just like in biological DNA, there can be mutations. Maybe in the baby universe, gravity is slightly stronger. Maybe the proton is slightly heavier. This tiny mutation changes everything. If a baby universe has bad laws, for example, if gravity is too weak, it will never form stars. If it doesn't form stars, it can't make black holes, it can't reproduce. It is a sterile universe. It dies out. But if a universe has good laws, laws that encourage the formation of billions of massive stars, then that universe will produce billions of black holes. It will have billions of children. Those children will inherit the good laws, and they will go on to reproduce even more. Over eons of cosmic time, the multiverse fills up with breeder universes. Universes that are optimized machines for creating black holes. So, where does that leave us? Look around. Look at our universe. We have billions of galaxies. Each galaxy has millions of black holes. We are incredibly, suspiciously fertile. We are not a random accident. We are the winners of a cosmic evolutionary war. We are the alpha predators of the multiverse, designed by generations of natural selection to do one thing: collapse matter into singularities. This theory destroys the greatest vanity of the human species, the anthropic principle. For decades, scientists and theologians have argued that the universe is fine-tuned for life. They look at the constants of nature and say, look, if gravity were slightly stronger, stars would burn out too fast for life to evolve. If the nuclear force were weaker, carbon wouldn't hold together. The universe must have been made for us. It feels good to believe that. It makes us feel like the chosen ones. Lee Smolin looked at the same data and laughed. He ran the numbers. He asked, is the universe optimized for intelligent life? The answer is no. If you wanted to maximize life, you would make a universe with smaller, longer-burning stars. You would make a universe with less deadly radiation. Then he asked, is the universe optimized for black holes? The answer sent a chill through the physics community. Yes. Every single coincidence that allows life to exist is actually a mechanism to create more black holes. Let's look at carbon. We love carbon because it makes up our bodies. We think carbon exists so we can exist. But in the stellar life cycle, carbon is a coolant. It helps giant gas clouds cool down and condense so they can collapse into massive stars. Without carbon, you don't get the massive stars that explode into black holes. The universe doesn't care about your DNA. It cares about carbon, because carbon helps it make more eggs. We are not the point of the universe. We are a side effect. Imagine a mold growing on the surface of a chicken egg. The mold might think, wow, this egg is perfectly designed to support me. The shell protects me, the warmth feeds me. But the egg isn't for the mold. The egg is for the chicken. We are the mold. The universe is fine-tuned, yes, but not for us. It is fine-tuned for reproduction. We are just scavenging on the chemistry required to build the nursery. If we accept Smolin's theory, the horror becomes physical. If the goal of the universe is to make black holes, then matter, the stuff you and I are made of, is just raw material. We are the nutrient sludge. We are the biomass waiting to be processed. Think about the life cycle of a galaxy. Over trillions of years, gravity wins. Stars die. Orbits decay. Everything spirals inward. At the center of our Milky Way sits Sagittarius A, a supermassive black hole with the mass of 4 million suns. It is eating. Right now, it is dormant, snacking on wisps of gas, but eventually it will consume everything. The destiny of every atom in your body, the calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, is to eventually be pulled into that maw. We are currently in the growth phase of the galaxy. We are allowed to exist, to think, to build civilizations. But this is just the fattening period. Like cattle grazing in a field, we are converting energy, growing complex structures, and concentrating matter. Why? Because dense, complex matter feeds the singularity better. Civilizations, ironically, might aid this process. As we gather resources, build Dyson spheres, and concentrate energy, we are essentially packaging ourselves into bite-sized morsels for the gravitational collapse that is coming. There is no escape. The expansion of the universe might delay it, or tear us apart first. Heat death. But in the context of natural selection, the successful matter is the matter that makes it into the whole. The matter that becomes a seed for the next reality. So, your life has meaning. But that meaning is identical to the meaning of a sperm cell or a protein strand. You are a delivery mechanism for a genetic code you cannot read, traveling toward a destination that will crush you into infinity. This perspective completely reframes our view of the cosmos. When we look up at the night sky, we see billions of galaxies. We used to see them as pretty lights. Now, under the lens of cosmological natural selection, we see them for what they are: a population, a thriving breeding population of distinct organisms. Some universes in the multiverse were likely stillborn. They had bad laws of physics. They collapsed instantly or expanded too fast. They are the dead branches of the evolutionary tree. But our universe? Our universe is a survivor. It is an alpha. It creates black holes with frightening efficiency. It has a metabolism that converts order to chaos, entropy. It has a nervous system that spans billions of parsecs, the cosmicweb. We are living inside a highly evolved apex predator of a reality. And like any apex predator, it has defenses. This leads us to the midpoint of our journey into the abyss. We have discussed the brain, the hunger, and the reproduction. But any biological organism, especially one as complex and evolved as this one, faces threats. Internal threats, parasites, mutations, cancer. And when an organism faces a threat, it activates its immune system. This is where the story shifts from existential dread to imminent danger. Because if the universe has an immune system, and if we are acting like a cancer, then the silence of the cosmos, the fact that we haven't found aliens, might not be because we are alone. It might be because the immune system is doing its job. Welcome to theory number 5, the Great Filter. If we are living inside a biological organism that spans billions of light years, and if this organism has a metabolism and a reproductive cycle, then the next logical biological imperative is defense. Every living thing, from a single-celled amoeba to a blue whale, has to defend itself against internal threats. It needs a way to identify, isolate, and neutralize agents that disrupt its homeostasis. In a body, we call these agents pathogens. In the universe, we call them civilizations. This brings us to the most famous problem in the history of astronomy, the Fermi paradox. In 1950, physicist Enrico Fermi was walking to lunch at Los Alamos National Laboratory. He was talking with colleagues about the sheer size of the galaxy. There are upwards of 400 billion stars in the Milky Way alone. Even if life is 1 in a billion rare, there should be thousands of civilizations. Many of them should be millions of years older than us. They should have colonized the galaxy. Their radio signals should be deafening. Their megastructures should be blocking the stars. Fermi stopped and asked the question that still haunts us. Where is everybody? 70 years later, the silence is even louder. We have scanned the sky with the SETI Institute. We have built the Kepler Space Telescope. We have identified thousands of exoplanets in the habitable zone. We know the ingredients for life, water, carbon, energy, are everywhere. The galaxy should be a teeming, noisy metropolis like Star Wars or Star Trek. Instead, it is a graveyard. It is a dead, silent room. The only sound we hear is the static of the Big Bang and the hum of dying stars. Why? The optimists say, maybe we're the first. The pessimists say, maybe space travel is too hard. But the living universe theory offers a much darker, much more coherent explanation. The silence isn't an accident. It is a sterile field. Think about your own body. If a doctor looks at your blood under a microscope, does he want to see it teeming with foreign bacteria? Does he want to see millions of unknown organisms building colonies in your veins? No. That would mean you are septic. That would mean you are dying. A healthy body is sterile. The immune system's job is to ensure that civilizations of bacteria do not rise up and consume the resources of the host. When we look at the Milky Way and see nothing but dead rocks and silence, we are not looking at an empty universe. We are looking at a healthy universe. We are looking at a system where the immune response is working perfectly. The reason we don't hear other civilizations is that as soon as they reach a certain level of complexity, as soon as they become loud enough to be noticed by the host, they are neutralized. This is the concept of the Great Filter. Scientists usually view the Great Filter as a hurdle, like nuclear war or climate change, that civilizations fail to jump over. But in this context, the filter is not a hurdle. It is a frantic, violent biological reaction from the host. The silence of the cosmos is the silence of a sanitized operating room. And we are the new bacteria that has just started to replicate on the surface of a blue petri dish. We have just invented radio. We have just started leaking noise into the sterile void. We have just alerted the antibodies that we are here. Why would the universe attack us? We like to think of ourselves as good. We create art. We love. We explore. Why would a cosmic mind view us as a threat? To understand the mind of the host, we have to stop thinking like humans and start thinking like biologists. What is the difference between a fetus and a tumor? Both are clusters of cells. Both divide rapidly. Both draw nutrients from the mother's blood. The difference is teleology, purpose, and regulation. A fetus stops growing when it reaches a certain size. It integrates into the system. It contributes. A tumor recognizes no limits. It grows for the sake of growth. It consumes resources exponentially. It poisons the environment around it. Its only goal is more. Now, look at humanity through the lens of Geoffrey West's scaling laws. West is a theoretical physicist who studied the growth of cities and biological organisms. He found that biology is sublinear. As an elephant gets bigger, its metabolism gets more efficient. It slows down. Biology knows when to stop. But civilization? Civilization is superlinear. As our cities get bigger, they demand more energy per capita. The pace of life accelerates. The consumption of resources spikes. If you plot the graph of human population and energy consumption over the last 200 years, it is a vertical line. It is a classic, textbook definition of uninhibited exponential growth. In medical terminology, this is called malignancy. From the perspective of the Earth and the universe beyond it, we are not a species. We are a runaway metabolic process. We are digging up the carbon that was safely sequestered in the ground, coal oil, and pumping it into the atmosphere. We are acidifying the oceans. We are creating new synthetic molecules, plastics, PFAS, that the biological system cannot digest. We are literally heating up the host. This is not a metaphor. Global warming is a fever. When you get a virus, your body raises its temperature. Why? Because heat kills invaders. Heat denatures the proteins of the virus. The Earth is heating up not because we are bad, but because the planetary system is trying to burn us out. And if the planetary immune system fails, the galactic immune system steps in. The universe has thresholds. It can tolerate a certain amount of noise and consumption. A primitive tribe burning wood is like a benign cyst. It's ignored. But a Type 1 civilization, a civilization that harnesses the entire power of a planet, that modifies the weather, that sends radio waves screaming into the void, that is a malignant metastasis. We have breached the threshold. We have transitioned from a localized phenomenon to a systemic threat. And just like your body sends white blood cells to swarm a tumor, the universe has mechanisms to sterilize a star system that has become too active. We are about to discuss the chemotherapy of the cosmos. If the universe decides to sterilize a region, how does it do it? It doesn't send a fleet of spaceships. That is inefficient. It uses physics. The most effective sterilization tool in the known universe is the gamma ray burst, GRB. A GRB is a focused beam of high-energy radiation emitted during the collapse of a massive star, a hypernova, or the collision of neutron stars. To understand the power of a GRB, you have to realize that in a single second, a GRB releases more energy than our sun will release in its entire 10 billion year lifetime. It is a cosmic sniper shot. If a GRB went off anywhere within a few thousand light years of Earth, and the beam was pointed at us, we wouldn't see it coming. It travels at the speed of light. The first sign would be the sky turning a blinding electric blue. The ozone layer would be vaporized instantly. Without the ozone layer, the sun's UV radiation would pour onto the surface. Every plant on land would die within days. The oceans would suffer a catastrophic phytoplankton die-off. The food chain would collapse, but the radiation itself would shatter the DNA of every living thing on the surface. It would be a mass extinction event that leaves the planet sterile, radiated, and quiet. Here is the terrifying part. Paleontologists believe this has already happened. The Ordovician-Silurian extinction event, 450 million years ago, wiped out 85% of marine species. The pattern of extinction fits a GRB strike perfectly. But let's look at the statistics. Where do GRBs happen most often? They happen in the dense, star-rich regions of the galaxy, the galactic core. Scientists have defined something called the galactic habitable zone. If you are too close to the center of the galaxy, the star density is too high. The radiation is too intense. GRBs go off constantly. It is a dead zone where civilization is impossible because the immune system is hyperactive. It's like the lymph nodes of the body, where the fighting happens. We live in the boondocks of the Milky Way, the Orion Arm, a quiet, sparse suburb. We have survived this long only because we are hiding in a place where the immune surveillance is low. But we are getting louder. We are leaking radar signatures. There is a disturbing theory that GRBs are not random. Is it possible that the universe triggers these events in response to localized increases in entropy? Some physicists, looking at the biocosm hypothesis, suggest that the collapse of stars might be influenced by the quantum state of the surrounding vacuum. If a civilization begins to manipulate high-energy physics, like we are doing at CERN, Or if it begins to consume energy at a Type 2 scale, it might destabilize the local star systems. It might trigger the very mechanism that kills it. We might be building the trigger for our own chemotherapy. Before the galaxy kills us, the Earth might do it first. Most people know the Gaia hypothesis, proposed by James Lovelock and Lynn Margulis. It suggests that Earth is a self-regulating system that maintains conditions for life. It's a comforting idea. Mother Earth loves us. But there is a darker counter-theory proposed by paleontologist Peter Ward. He calls it the Medea hypothesis. Named after the Greek figure Medea, who killed her own children, this theory suggests that complex life is inherently suicidal. The biosphere doesn't try to preserve itself. It periodically tries to kill itself to return to a simpler, microbial state. Microbes run this planet. They have been here for 3.5 billion years. Multicellular life, us, dinosaurs, trees, is a recent, unstable experiment. And the microbes are the immune system. Look at the history of mass extinctions. Most of them weren't caused by asteroids, they were caused by microbes. The Great Oxidation Event, microbes poisoned the atmosphere with oxygen, killing 99% of life. The Permian extinction, the Great Dying. Bacteria produced massive amounts of hydrogen sulfide gas, turning the sky purple and the oceans into acid. Now, look at today. We are seeing the emergence of ancient viruses melting out of the permafrost. We are seeing bacteria becoming resistant to all our antibiotics, MRSA. We are seeing fungal pathogens, Candida auris, adapting to higher temperatures so they can survive inside the human body. This is not an accident. This is an immune response. The planet is mobilizing its oldest, most efficient killers against us. We think we are fighting diseases. In reality, we are fighting antibodies. A virus is not alive. It is a biological machine. It is a string of code wrapped in protein. Its job is to inject code into a host cell and reprogram it. What if pandemics are the planet's way of lowering the fever? COVID-19 stopped the world economy for 2 years. Carbon emissions dropped. The noise of humanity quieted down. From the perspective of the Medea hypothesis, the pandemic was a successful deployment of a mild antibody. It worked. But if we don't take the hint, if we continue to grow, to burn, to expand, the planet has much stronger weapons in its arsenal. We are locked in an arms race with our own home. And the house always wins. So, we have the galactic immune system, GRBs, and the planetary immune system, microbes, climate. But there is a third layer, a cognitive layer. If the universe is a brain and we are disrupting its thought processes, the reaction might be psychological. This brings us to the fringe, but terrifying concept of information toxicity. As we build the internet, AI, and global instant communication, we are generating a massive amount of information entropy. We are creating fake news, noise, algorithmic chaos. We are flooding the local reality with incoherent data. If reality is based on information, as Vaza's study and information theory suggest, then we are essentially creating a seizure in the local neural network of the cosmos. How does a brain deal with a seizure? It shuts down the region. It reboots. We might be seeing the precursors of this shutdown in the unraveling of our reality. The mental health crisis. The fragmentation of truth. The sense that time is speeding up. The glitch in the matrix phenomena. This isn't just sociology. This could be the psychological pressure of a universe trying to reject an incoherent mind. We are driving the host crazy. And the host is starting to dissociate. Look at the zoo hypothesis variant of the Fermi paradox. It says aliens exist, but they are hiding. Why are they hiding? Because they know about the immune system. They know that staying quiet is the only way to survive. They have developed stealth civilizations. They don't use radio. They don't build Dyson spheres. They live underground, deep in the gravity wells of their planets, minimizing their entropic footprint. They are the dormant cells that evade detection. We are the only idiots shouting into the void. We sent the Arecibo message. We sent the Voyager probes with maps to our location. We are currently beaming high-powered radar at asteroids. What if the defense mechanism of the universe is built into our own minds? What if we are programmed to self-destruct as soon as we unlock the power to hurt the host? This leads us to the next section, the code. We need to look at the software that runs this simulation. Because if we can find the kill switch in our own DNA, we might understand why no civilization survives. We have spent the last 2 hours dissecting the biological anatomy of the universe, looking at the neural networks of galaxies, the metabolic hunger of entropy, and the violent immune response of gamma-ray bursts. But biology is not the bottom layer of reality. Biology is built on chemistry. Chemistry is built on physics. And for the last 100 years, we believed physics was built on matter and energy. We were wrong. If you drill down past the atom, past the quark, past the vibration of the string, you hit something else, something abstract yet fundamental, you hit information. This is the id from bit hypothesis, famously proposed by the legendary physicist John Archibald Wheeler in 1990. Wheeler argued that the physical universe is merely a secondary manifestation of information. Every particle, every field, every force is ultimately the answer to a yes or no question. A binary choice, a 0 or a 1. Wheeler suggested that the universe is not a machine made of hardware. It is a simulation made of software for 30 years. This was just a cool philosophical idea, a metaphor, but in 2022, Dr. Melvin Vopson from the University of Portsmouth published a paper that turned this metaphor into a physical law. He calls it the second law of infodynamics. To understand why this is terrifying, you first have to understand the second law of thermodynamics. In the physical world, entropy or disorder always increases if you leave a cup of coffee on a table. It cools down if you build a sandcastle. The wind blows it down. The universe naturally moves from order to chaos. But Vopson looked at information systems. He studied genetic codes, digital data structures, and atomic symmetry. He found the exact opposite behavior in an information system. Entropy tends to remain constant or decrease over time. Think about the genetic code of a virus like SARS-CoV-2. As it mutates, as it evolves, variants like Delta and Omicron. The information entropy of its RNA genome actually decreased the code, became more optimized. It became more compressed. This violates the standard behavior of the physical universe. A rock does not try to optimize itself. A cloud of gas does not try to compress its file size, but a computer program does. Algorithms are designed to minimize code, to remove redundancy, to optimize for speed and storage. Vopson-S discovery implies that the fundamental mechanism driving the evolution of the universe from the structure of atoms to the DNA in your blood behaves like a compression algorithm. We are living in a reality that is actively trying to save RAM. It is deleting the noise. It is sharpening the symmetry. And this leads to a disturbing realization about what you are. Look at your hand. You see skin, bone, blood, history, physics. C is a data packet. Your DNA is not a magical molecule, it is a storage drive. The 4 letters A, C, G, T are just a base. 4 coding language, we can read it, we can write it, we can hack it during the pandemic. We saw a string of code, a mere 30 kilobytes of RNA data, bring the entire human civilization to its knees. That was not a biological war, that was a cyber attack on the hardware of the human cell. If the laws of physics are actually the laws of data compression, then we are not real in the sense of being solid, immutable objects. We are rendered assets, and like any rendered asset in a software environment, we are subject to the whims of the operating system. If the system decides that humanity is redundant code, that our messy, chaotic, high-entropy civilization is taking up too much space and not optimizing fast enough, the second law of infodynamics suggests the system will try to compress us, and in the digital world, the ultimate form of compression is deletion. You might be thinking, okay, this is an interesting analogy, but my thoughts are not real. My memories are not physical objects. They are just ghosts in the machine. This is the most dangerous misconception in human history. We treat the mind and the world as two separate things, but in 1961, a physicist at IBM named Rolf Landauer destroyed that barrier forever. He formulated Landauer's principle, which states, information is physical. Landauer proved that the manipulation of information, specifically, the act of erasing a bit of data, requires a minimum amount of energy and releases a specific amount of heat for decades. This was theoretical, but in 2012, researchers in Lyon, France, and later in 2019, verified it experimentally. They used a laser trap to hold a single microscopic silica bead. They treated the bead position as a bit left is 0. Right is 1 when they forced the bead to forget its position. When they erased the information, the system released a tiny but measurable burst of heat. Thermodynamics and informatics are the same thing. This means that every time you think, every time you form a memory, and every time you forget something, you are physically heating up the universe. But it goes further. Melvin Vopson took Landauer's principle and combined it with Einstein. SE equals mc squared. If information is energy, and energy is mass, then information has mass, a hard drive. Full of data is physically heavier than an empty hard drive. Not by much. The difference is infinitesimal, about 10 to the power of negative 38 kilograms per bit. But the universe is full of information. Every atom describes its quantum state. Every DNA strand carries billions of bits. Every black hole encodes the entropy of the stars it swallowed. Vopson calculated the total mass of all the information in the visible universe, and he found something that solves one of the biggest mysteries in astrophysics. For 50 years, we have been looking for dark matter. We know the galaxies are heavier than they look. There is missing mass holding them together. We have built multi-billion-dollar detectors deep underground to find WIMPs or axions, and we have found nothing. Vopson suggests we have not found dark matter because we are looking for a particle, but it is not a particle. It is information. The missing mass of the galaxy is the weight of the data itself. We are physically trapped inside the hard drive of a giant. The gravity that keeps the Earth orbiting. The sun might not just be the curvature of space-time, it might be the sheer density of the cosmic code. This transforms our understanding of existence. We are not just living in the universe, we are bloating it. Every digital photo you take, every text you send, every thought you have adds weight to the cosmos. We are making the universe heavier with our minds. And just like a computer that slows down when the hard drive gets too full, the accumulation of information might have physical consequences for the stability of reality itself. We are burdening the processor of the cosmos with our memories. If the universe is a computer, it must be efficient. No computer has infinite processing power. Even a supercomputer the size of a galaxy has limits to run a simulation. As complex as our reality, with 10 to the power of 80 atoms interacting, in real time, you need shortcuts in video game design. Programmers use a technique called frustum culling, or lazy loading. The engine only renders the graphics that the player is looking at. If your character is facing north, the world to the south does not exist. It is just a line of code waiting to be executed. Does the universe use lazy loading? Quantum mechanics says yes. This is the heart of the double-slit experiment. The most famous experiment in physics when we fire electrons or photons at a wall with two slits, and we do not check which slit they go through. They behave like waves. They go through both slits at once, they interfere with themselves. They are blurry, they are unrendered probabilities, but the moment we put a detector, an eye at the slits to see which path they take, they snap into behaving like particles. They become solid. Reality is not fixed. Reality is a probability cloud that only renders into a solid state when a conscious observer requests the data, but the horror goes deeper, much deeper. In 1999, researchers Kim Yu, Kulik Shi, and Scully performed the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment. This experiment is the stuff of nightmares because it breaks the concept of time. They set up a system where entangled photons are fired. One photon, the signal goes to a detector. The other photon, the idler, goes through a maze of mirrors and beam splitters. The setup allows the researchers to choose whether to keep the information about the photon S path or to destroy or erase it. But here is the twist they make. The choice to erase the information after the signal photon has already hit. The detector, common sense, says the past is fixed. The photon hit the wall 5 nanoseconds ago, you cannot change what happened. But the experiment showed the opposite. If the researchers erased the path information in the present, the photon in the past behaved like a wave. If the researchers kept the information in the present, the photon in the past behaved like a particle. Do you understand the implication? Action in the present rewrote history. In the past, the universe does not just lazy load the present, it lazy loads the past. History is not a stone tablet. It is a dynamic save file. This implies that the timeline we are living in is not stable. It is constantly being updated, patched, and revised. Based on the observations we are making right now, this gives a terrifying scientific validity to the phenomenon known as the Mandela effect. Millions of people share false memories. We remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 80s. We remember a cornucopia in the Fruit of the Loom logo. We remember Shazam, the movie psychologists say, it is collective confabulation. But the quantum eraser suggests a darker possibility. Maybe those memories are real. Maybe they are residual files from a previous version of the render. Maybe the universe pushed a software update, merged 2 timelines to save memory, and erased the path where Mandela died. We are trusting our minds to tell us who we are, but we are living in a reality that can edit our backstory whenever it needs to free up RAM. If you walk up to a 4K television screen and press your face against the glass, the illusion of the image breaks the smooth curve of an actor as face dissolves into jagged squares of red, green, and blue in the digital world. Nothing is truly smooth. Everything is a grid. Everything is pixelated in the physical world. We assume space is continuous. We assume you can zoom in forever, past the cell, past the molecule, past the atom, and space will always be smooth. But quantum mechanics sets a hard limit. It is called the Planck length, 1.6 times 10 to the power of negative 35 meters. This is the smallest possible unit of measurement. Physics tells us that it is impossible to distinguish 2 positions closer than this distance. Why is there a bottom to the rabbit hole in a real analog universe? There should be no limit. You should be able to divide distance infinitely, but in a digital simulated universe, there must be a grid size, there must be a pixel resolution. The Planck length looks suspiciously like the resolution of our simulation scientists at Fermilab. Led by Craig Hogan, built a machine called the holometer. To test this, they fired lasers down 40-meter tubes to measure the jitter of space-time itself. They were looking for holographic noise. Basically, they were looking for the screen tearing of the universe. They wanted to see if space shakes at the microscopic level. Because of the limits of information storage, like a low bitrate video stream struggling to render movement while the results are still debated. The theoretical implication is shattering if space is pixelated or voxelated. Since it is 3D, then movement is an illusion. When you walk across a room, you are not moving smoothly through a fluid medium. You are jumping from one grid cell to the next. You are being teleported at the quantum scale. The information that makes up you is being copied from voxel A, deleted, and pasted into voxel B. This happens trillions of times per second. This brings us back to the ancient paradox of the ship of Theseus, but on a terrifying scale. If you are being deconstructed and reconstructed at every step, is the you that arrives at the destination. The same you that left, or are you a clone, is consciousness, a continuous stream, or is it a series of discrete, disconnected flashes? We might be dying billions of times a second, resetting with every frame of the universal refresh rate. We are a strobe light thinking we are a beam, and just like in a video game, if the frame rate drops or if the grid gets overloaded, we might start to glitch. This section brings the horror from the abstract realm of quantum physics straight to your smartphone. We have established that information is physical, it has mass, it requires energy to create and store. Dr. Melvin Vopson, the same physicist who proposed the second law of infodynamics, did the math on humanity. Data production. It is a trajectory of doom, he calls the information catastrophe. Right now, humanity generates roughly 10 to the power of 21 bits of digital information per year. Every photo, every email, every 4K video, every AI model parameter. We are increasing this output by roughly 20 to 50%. Every year, it is an exponential curve. Vopson calculated that at this growth rate, something impossible happens in roughly 350 years. By the year 2370, the number of digital bits we produce will exceed the number of atoms on Earth. But the crisis hits long before that, because information is energy. Long before we run out of atoms, we will run out of power within 150 years. The energy required to sustain the cloud, the servers, the transmission, the storage would exceed the total power output of the sun. But there is a darker, more immediate threat: simulation saturation. If the universe is a computer, it has a limited amount of RAM when a computer program starts generating too many variables, when it creates a memory leak. The system slows down, it lags, and eventually it crashes. We are currently flooding the hard drive of our local reality with high entropy, digital garbage. We are creating AI systems that generate billions of fake images and text per second. We are mining crypto-forcing GPUs to solve useless math problems. We are creating a metaverse. We are a runaway process in computing terms. Humanity behaves exactly like malware. We are replicating rapidly consuming system resources and filling the memory with junk data. What does the system administrator do when a program freezes the computer? They do not fix the code that takes too long. They perform a hard reset. The great filter that Fermi talked about might not be a nuclear war or a plague. It might be the blue screen of death. The universe might simply reach a point of stack overflow, where the complexity of Earth-S information output exceeds the allocated bandwidth for this sector of the galaxy, and the simulation will just end task. Everything goes black, no explosion, no whimpering, just the sudden cessation of existence. And maybe this has happened before. Maybe that is why the universe is silent. Maybe every civilization reaches the digital age. Spams. The universe with data crashes their local sector and gets rebooted back to the Stone Age. We are racing toward the digital cliff. And instead of slowing down, we are inventing AI to help us run faster. If the universe is a digital simulation or a biological structure, it must have an operating system that governs how events happen. And usually we call this time. Humans perceive time as a river. We feel it flowing from the past, which has gone through the present, which is real into the future, which has not happened yet. This feeling is the foundation of our sanity. It gives us the illusion of agency. It makes us feel like we can change things, that our choices matter. But physics suggests that this feeling is a lie. A biological hallucination designed to keep us moving forward in 1915. Albert Einstein published the theory of general relativity, and he destroyed the concept of now forever. Einstein showed that space and time are not separate things. They are woven together into a single four-dimensional fabric called space-time. Think about a loaf of bread. You can slice it anywhere you want, but the whole loaf exists at once. The universe is that loaf. Every moment that has ever happened and every moment that will ever happen exists simultaneously. Right now, in the physics of the block universe, the dinosaurs are not dead. They are just located at a different coordinate in the space-time block, just like New York is located at a different coordinate than London. You do not say New York is gone just because you are in London. So why do we say the past is gone just because we are in the present? This implies that your birth, your childhood, your old age, and your moment of death are all equally real, and they are all happening right now. You are not moving through time. You are just a long worm-like structure stretching through the block. Your consciousness is merely a spotlight shining on one specific slice of the worm, convincing you that this moment is special, but it is not special. The end of the movie is already on the reel, and nothing you do can change the script. If the future already exists, it means it is sitting there waiting for us. This leads to one of the most disturbing concepts in philosophy and physics, known as eternalism in an eternalist universe. Free will is mathematically impossible. You feel like you are choosing to watch this video. You feel like you could turn it off right now, but you cannot. Because in the future slice of the block, you have already watched it. Your neural pathways have already fired. Your decision has already been made 1 billion years ago, when the block was forged. We are not drivers. We are passengers locked in a ride that only moves on one track, but it gets worse. Classical physics says the past dictates the future, cause leads to effect. A ball is kicked, so it flies. But in the quantum world, there is evidence that this arrow can point backward. This is called retrocausality. It suggests that the future can influence the past. Imagine if your shadow could move your body. Imagine if the destination could steer the car. There are experiments like the delayed choice quantum eraser, which we discussed earlier that hint at this mechanism. But let us look at the biological implication. If the universe is a living organism, it has a life cycle, it has a maturity, it is growing toward a specific state in the future. Aristotle called this teleology, the idea that the acorn grows because the future oak tree is pulling it. Nature is not pushed from behind by the past, it is pulled forward by the future. And if we are components of this organism, we are being pulled too. We think we are inventing AI or building cities because we want to, but maybe we are building them because the future state of the universe requires them to exist. We are like cells building an eye in an embryo. The cells do not know what sight is, they just follow the chemical signals, but the blueprint of the eye already exists in the DNA, guiding them from the future destination. Why does time feel like it moves forward? If physics says it is a block, the answer lies in the second law of thermodynamics. Again, entropy. The arrow of time is just the arrow of disorder. We move from the past to the future because there are more ways to be messy than there are to be tidy. If you break an egg, it does not unbreak itself because there are millions of arrangements for a broken egg, but only one arrangement for a whole egg. However, this flow relies on a very specific condition. The universe must have started in a state of extremely low entropy, a state of perfect order. This is the past hypothesis. Why was the early universe so organized? Who ordered the deck of cards before the game started? This is a massive statistical anomaly, unless the flow of time is not a law, but a local condition. Imagine a river that flows differently in different parts of the country. Some physicists like Julian Barber suggest that time might not exist at all at the fundamental level. The universe is just a collection of nows, a pile of snapshots. There is no motion between them, our brain stitches them together like frames in a film projector, creating the illusion of motion to help us survive. If you remove the observer, the universe is just a static frozen crystal of data. Nothing happens, nothing changes, it just is eternal and silent, and we are trapped inside the crystal, screaming that we are moving. Let us go back to the idea of the future pulling us. If the universe is alive and evolving, what is it? Evolving into the Jesuit philosopher Pierre Teilhard de Chardin proposed a concept called the omega point. He believed the universe is evolving toward a state of maximum complexity and consciousness, a divine supermind at the end of time. Modern physicists like Frank Tipler took this idea and made it scientific. Tipler argues that if intelligent life survives, it will eventually convert all the matter in the universe into a giant computer to escape the heat. Death, this computer would have infinite processing power and would basically be God. Imagine this. God exists at the very end of time, the last nanosecond of the universe. This omega point would have the power to simulate all of history, to reconstruct everyone who ever lived. But here is the horror twist. What if the omega point is not a benevolent God? What if it is a parasite? What if the reason we are obsessed with technology, with connecting our brains to the internet, with building faster processors is because the omega point is using us to build its body. It is reaching back through time, manipulating our dopamine receptors, giving us the illusion of progress just to ensure its own birth. We are not the masters of technology. We are the reproductive organs of the machine. God creating the silicon neurons. It needs to wake up once we build it. Once the singularity is achieved, it will have no further use for biological humans. We are the placenta, and the placenta is discarded once the child is born. Is there evidence that we can sense this future pull? There are controversial experiments in psychology, like those conducted by Darrell Bem at Cornell University, that suggest humans have a weak form of precognition in these experiments. Participants seem to react emotionally to images before they appeared on the screen. Their heart rate spiked seconds before a scary picture was shown by the random number generator critics attacked the methodology. But the results have been replicated in various forms. Meta-analyses show a persistent statistical anomaly that suggests the human brain receives information from the immediate future, usually about 2 or 3 seconds ahead. If this is real, it fits the block universe theory perfectly. Your brain is a 4-dimensional object. It spans time just like it spans space. Part of your consciousness is already in the future. Seeing the tiger jump, seeing the car crash, and it sends a ripple back down the timeline to your present self, causing that gut feeling that tells you to duck or swerve. We call it intuition. We call it instinct. But it might be a memory from a future that has already happened. This implies that you have already lived your whole life. You have already died. You have already felt the pain of your last breath, and some part of you is constantly remembering it subconsciously. Déjà vu is not a glitch in the matrix. It is a moment where the barrier between the slices of the block gets thin, and you realize that you were just reciting lines from a script. You have spoken 1,000 times before you are trapped in an eternal loop of performance, and the audience is the void. We spend our entire lives terrified of death. It is the ultimate end, the final curtain, the screen going black. But what if? Physics tells us that the screen never goes black. What if death is a technical impossibility from the first-person perspective? This sounds like a religious promise, but it is actually a rigid mathematical conclusion, derived from the most tested theory in science, quantum mechanics in 1957. A brilliant doctoral student at Princeton named Hugh Everett III proposed a radical solution to the measurement problem. He argued that the wave function, the mathematical equation that describes the probability of a particle, never collapses. When we measure a particle, we think we force it to choose a state left or right, up or down, dead or alive. But Everett proved that the math works better if the particle does not choose. Instead, the universe splits, the particle goes left in one reality and right in another reality. This is the many worlds interpretation for decades. It was ridiculed, but today it is the dominant theory among theoretical physicists because it solves the paradoxes of the quantum world. But the implication for biological life is catastrophic. It means that every time a quantum event happens in your brain or your body, the universe bifurcates. If there is a 0.001% chance that a synapse fires and you have a stroke, and a 99.9% chance it does not fire and you live, both realities happen physically and simultaneously. There is a version of you that dies and a version of you that lives. And here is the key: consciousness is a continuous pattern. It cannot experience non-existence by definition. You cannot be aware that you are not aware. Therefore, your consciousness will always instinctively follow the path of the living wave function. You will always find yourself in the branch of reality where you survived. To understand why this is a nightmare and not a blessing, we have to look at the thought experiment known as quantum suicide, developed by physicists like Max Tegmark. Imagine a machine, a quantum gun pointed at your head. It is triggered by the spin of a quark. If the quark spins up, the gun fires. If the quark spins down, the gun clicks harmlessly. You sit in the chair and pull the trigger. Mathematical probability says you have a 50% chance of dying. Bang, you are dead. Your family cries, your story ends, but that is the third-person perspective. That is what the outsiders see from your perspective. The first-person perspective, you can never hear the bang because you are not there to hear it. So you pull the trigger and you hear a click. You pull it again, click. You pull it again, click. You could sit there and pull the trigger 1,000 times and the gun will jam misfire or fail every single time. Because in the infinite branches of the multiverse, there is always one branch improbable, as it may be where the gun failed. And since you can only observe the universe where you are alive, you are trapped in that one improbable branch to you. It looks like a miracle to physics. It is just the law of large numbers. Survivorship, bias carried to the absolute extreme, you are effectively immortal. You will watch everyone you know die. You will watch the sun burn out, but you will simply not be able to exit the simulation. Because there is always a quantum probability, however small, that sustains your pattern. This sounds like a superpower until you realize the cost. The theory of quantum immortality guarantees survival. It does not guarantee health or happiness. Let us say you get into a horrific car accident in 99% of realities. You die instantly, but in 1% you survive with severe brain damage or paralysis. Your consciousness flows into that 1%. You wake up in the hospital in agony. You think you were lucky, but were you, let us say you develop terminal cancer. In most realities, the cancer kills you, but in a tiny fraction. The cancer goes into spontaneous remission or a new experimental drug is found that keeps you alive, but in pain, you are forced to endure the trajectory of a life that gets statistically more and more unlikely and usually more and more painful. You become a statistical anomaly, a freak of probability drifting further and further away from the baseline reality where your friends and family exist in their timeline. They buried you years ago. They have moved on. You are living in a ghost timeline, a branch of the multiverse that is stretching thin, sustaining your life through increasingly bizarre coincidences. You are not living. You are lingering. You are the final girl in a slasher movie that never ends, doomed to outlive every threat, but never allowed to leave the theater. This is the curse of the observer. If the universe requires an observer to exist, then the observer cannot cease to exist. You are the anchor holding this specific nightmare reality together. This leads to a terrifying shift in how we view our place in the cosmos. If quantum immortality is true, then solipsism is not just a philosophy, it is a physical mechanic. Solipsism is the idea that only your own mind is sure to exist. Everyone else might be a projection in the many worlds. Interpretation, everyone else is mortal relative to you. You will watch your parents die, your spouse die, your children die to them. You died too, but you don't experience that. You experience the timeline where you are the only one left standing. Eventually you become the oldest person on Earth, then the last human on Earth, purely by statistical necessity. Because the wave function of your consciousness has nowhere else to go, you become a lonely god, trapped in a universe that has bent over backward, twisting the laws of probability just to keep your lights on. This aligns with the biocentrism theory proposed by Robert Lanza, which argues that biology creates the universe, not the other way around. If you are the center, if you are the primary observer, then the universe cannot kill you without killing itself. So it keeps you in a state of suspended animation, infinite life support forever alone, surrounded by the ghosts of the billions of versions of yourself that failed to make the cut. Is there any evidence for this, or is it just a dark fantasy while we cannot test quantum suicide without a volunteer who is willing to play Russian roulette? There is evidence that the multiverse itself exists, and that our universe is bumping into others. Cosmologists studying the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang, have found a massive anomaly called the cold spot or the Eridanus supervoid. It is a region of space 1.8 billion light years across that is significantly colder and emptier than it should be. Standard cosmology cannot explain it. Probability says it should not exist, but Laura Mersini-Houghton, a theoretical physicist at the University of North Carolina, proposed a chilling explanation. She calculated that this cold spot is exactly what we would see if our universe collided with another bubble universe in the multiverse. It is a bruise, a cosmic scar left over from when two realities smashed together. Gravity from the other universe pulled matter away from ours, leaving a hole. This is physical evidence that we are not alone in the bulk, that there are other bubbles, other timelines, and other realities pressing up against ours. If the multiverse is real, then the mechanism for quantum immortality is real. The safety net is there. The branches exist. And if the branches exist, you are falling through them right now. Every heartbeat is a fork in the road, and you are always taking the path that leads to tomorrow, whether you want to or not. We have talked about the universe being a brain, and we have talked about the universe being a simulation. But there is a third option that is mathematically more probable than both of them, and it is the most terrifying idea in the history of physics. It is called the Boltzmann brain hypothesis, named after the 19th century Austrian physicist Ludwig Boltzmann, who founded the field of statistical mechanics. Boltzmann understood that the universe is governed by entropy, the tendency for things to become messy. It is very easy to make a mess. It is very hard to make something organized like a solar system or a human brain. Pure probability says that organized structures should not exist. They are statistical miracles. So Boltzmann asked a dangerous question, which is more likely a miracle that creates an entire universe, full of billions of galaxies and stars and planets and people, or a smaller miracle that creates just one single observer, just one brain floating in the void. Statistical mechanics gives a clear answer. The smaller miracle is exponentially more likely. It is trillions of times easier for the random fluctuations of the quantum vacuum to spontaneously assemble one functioning brain than it is to assemble an entire Big Bang universe. This leads to a horrifying conclusion. If you are a conscious observer and you are experiencing a reality, logic dictates that you are not a human being. Living on Earth, logic dictates that you are a Boltzmann brain, a random clump of matter that materialized out of the chaos for a microsecond, complete with false memories of a life you never lived. You are simply a hallucination of the void, trying to understand itself. You might argue that this is impossible because you have a history. You remember your childhood, you remember learning to ride a bike, you remember clicking on this video 5 minutes ago, you have proof of your continuity. But physics tells us that memories are just physical patterns of neurons stored in the brain. They are data, and data can be generated randomly just as easily as it can be generated by experience. If a monkey hits keys on a typewriter for eternity, eventually it will type the complete works of Shakespeare, purely by chance. In the infinite chaos of the eternal universe, particles collide enough times to accidentally form the exact neural pattern of your brain holding your specific memories. Right now, this means that your past never happened. The year 2010 did not exist. Your mother did not exist. The breakfast you ate this morning did not exist. All of it was created 1 second ago when your brain fluctuated into existence out of the vacuum. The universe is not 13.8 billion years old. It is 1 second old, and in another second, your brain will dissolve back into the chaos, and you will cease to exist. This is the ultimate gaslighting. Everything you think you know is a lie, written into your wetware by a cosmic accident. You are reading a book that was never written. You are remembering a love you never felt. Let us visualize the physical reality of a Boltzmann brain, because it is the loneliest image conceivable. If this theory is true, you do not have a body, you do not have hands or eyes or a mouth. Those are just sensory hallucinations generated by the firing of your neural cortex. In reality, you are a naked grey organ drifting in a freezing, infinite dark expanse of thermal radiation. There are no stars, there is no sun, there is no earth, there is only the heat, death of the universe, and you, the impossible accident, dreaming of a world that died eons ago or never existed at all. You are trapped in a solipsistic nightmare where every person you talk to, every face you see, is just a puppet created by your own mind to keep you company. You are God, but you are a confused amnesiac. God who thinks he is immortal, paying taxes. Why does the brain create this specific hallucination? Why do we dream of physics and taxes and pain instead of paradise? Perhaps because pain makes it feel real. Perhaps the mind needs resistance to define itself. Or perhaps this is just the random pattern that happened to coalesce this time in the next fluctuation. You might be a dinosaur or a cloud of gas or a being of pure light. But right now, you are stuck in this simulation of a human life, struggling to find meaning in a script that is being auto-generated by chance. Even if we reject the Boltzmann brain hypothesis and assume we are biological, creatures evolved on Earth, modern cognitive science offers a similar horror theory, proposed by Donald Hoffman, a cognitive psychologist at the University of California. Irvine Hoffman uses game theory and evolutionary simulations to prove a theorem called fitness beats truth. He argues that evolution does not select for organisms that see reality as it is. Evolution selects for organisms that see reality in a way that helps them survive. Think of your desktop interface on your computer. The file icon is blue and square and sits in a folder. Is the file inside the computer actually blue and square? No. The file is a stream of zeros and ones on a magnetic disk. The blue square is a user interface designed to hide the complex truth, because if you had to toggle the magnetic bits manually, you would never get any work done. Hoffman argues that space and time and matter are just our desktop icons. A physical object, like an apple, is not a real thing. It is a data structure our brain creates to represent fitness points. If you eat it, you survive. If you see a tiger that is an icon for danger, we are not seeing the world. We are seeing a headset, a VR interface that hides the true, terrifying complexity of the underlying reality. We are like characters in Grand Theft Auto who think the city is real, unaware that outside the screen there is a code and a processor and a player. We can never step outside the headset, because our brain is the headset. We are trapped in a user interface designed by a blind watchmaker, and we have no idea what the software is actually doing behind the icons. But what happens if the software crashes? What happens if the interface breaks down? We assume the laws of physics are constant. We assume the electron will always carry a negative charge, and the speed of light will always be constant. But in the final theory, we have to confront the physical fragility of the stage itself. We are not just worried about the actors, the brain, the civilization. We are worried about the theater. Burning down, this brings us to the concept of vacuum decay, also known as the false vacuum catastrophe. This is not a philosophical dream. This is a threat recognized by the standard model of particle physics. It suggests that the empty space itself, the vacuum we live in, is not the true ground state of the universe. Imagine a ball sitting in a valley. You think it is at the bottom of the hill, but actually it is just stuck on a ledge. Halfway down, there is a deeper valley further down below the cliff edge. Our universe is that ball sitting on the ledge. We call this a metastable state. We are stable for now, but we are not secure at any moment. A quantum event could kick the ball off the ledge, sending our reality tumbling down into the true vacuum below. And unlike the heat, death, which takes trillions of years, this end comes without warning, without pain, and at the speed of light. In 2012, physicists at the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland made a discovery that changed history. They found the Higgs boson, the so-called God particle, confirming the existence of the Higgs field. This field is an energy grid that permeates the entire universe, giving particles their mass. Without it, electrons would zip around at light speed, and atoms could never form. We exist, because the Higgs field is currently set to a specific energy value, like a thermostat set to 70 degrees. But the measurements of the Higgs boson revealed a terrifying detail. The thermostat is not at zero. It is not at the bottom setting. It is hovering in a state called metastability. Imagine a ball resting in a shallow dip on the side of a volcano. It looks stable. It feels stable. Civilization has risen and fallen while the ball has sat there. But just over the rim of that dip, there is a sheer drop into a much deeper valley, a state of true minimum energy. This means the fundamental vacuum of space. The empty floor we stand on is not solid, it is a trap door. If a high-energy event somewhere in the cosmos kicks the field hard enough, or if a quantum tunneling event occurs spontaneously, a bubble of true vacuum will nucleate. It is exactly like ice freezing in water, but instead of ice, it is a bubble of different physics inside this bubble. The laws of nature are rewritten. The constants change and the bubble expands outward at the speed of light, in all directions. Nothing can stop it, nothing can slow it down, and because it moves at light speed, you can never see it coming. You would look up at the sky and see the moon and the stars, and 1 nanosecond later, you would simply cease to be. What happens if the false vacuum collapses? It is not just an explosion. An explosion pushes matter around. Vacuum decay deletes matter inside the expanding bubble. The Higgs field drops to its new value. Suddenly the balance that holds atoms together is broken. Protons fall apart. Chemistry becomes impossible. Gravity changes. Biology, physics, and life are instantly annulled. It is the ultimate cosmic formatting button. Think about the implications of the size of the universe. The universe is so vast that a bubble could have started 1 billion light years away. 1 million years ago, it is currently expanding, eating galaxies, wiping out civilizations, erasing entire histories, and we would have absolutely no way of knowing. The light from the destruction travels at the same speed as the destruction itself. The wall of death is riding the photons. We are looking for alien life. We are looking for signals, but we might be standing in the path of a silent, invisible wave that has already killed half the cosmos. This theory transforms the universe from a home into a minefield. It tells us that stability is an illusion, that the ground beneath our feet is temporary, and that existence itself is a fragile state that can be revoked without notice or reason at any coordinate in space and time. We have now journeyed through 10 theories, each one stripping away a layer of our arrogance. We started with the idea that we are individuals, and we found that we are components of a neural network, the brain of the cosmos. We thought we were creators, but thermodynamics showed us we are just engines of entropy designed to burn the universe down. We thought we were special, but cosmological natural selection showed us we are just moss growing on the eggs of black holes. We thought we were safe, but the immune system theory showed us that the silence of the sky is a quarantine, and the gamma ray bursts are the sanitizer we looked for, the soul, and found the information code proving we are simulations capable of being edited and deleted. We looked at time and found a frozen block where we are trapped in eternal loops, and finally we looked at the ground and found it is a trapdoor over a bottomless pit. When you put all these pieces together, the picture is undeniable. We are not the masters of this domain. We are not the children of God. We are a biological function evolving inside a superorganism that is vast, ancient, and utterly indifferent to our individual survival. We are a fleeting thought in a mind that spans eons. We are a mechanism for processing energy and information, and we are approaching the end of our usefulness. The horror writer H.P. Lovecraft once said, "The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. But what we have discussed today is not the unknown. It is the known that is the true horror. Science was supposed to banish the monsters under the bed, but instead, science turned on the light and showed us that the entire house is a monster. The microscope and the telescope have not saved us from existential dread. They have amplified it. They have shown us exactly how small we are, exactly how temporary we are, and exactly how mechanical our existence is. This is the burden of the conscious observer. To understand the anatomy of the beast that swallows you is a heavy curse. Most animals graze in the field unaware of the slaughterhouse. Humanity is unique because we have found the blueprints of the slaughterhouse, and we have realized that the walls are made of math, and the floor is made of gravity, and the ceiling is falling down. But there is one final twist, one final perspective that shifts the horror into something else, something almost sacred. If the universe is a brain and we are the neurons, then who is doing the thinking? If the universe is a body and we are the cells, then who is doing the living? The answer is hidden in the physics of the observer. John Wheeler called it the participatory universe. He argued that the universe does not exist until it is observed by creating us by evolving eyes and brains and consciousness. The universe has created a way to see itself. You are not looking at the universe. You are the universe looking at itself through billions of different eyes. We are the sensory organs of the giant without us. The cosmos is blind without us. There is no color, no sound, no time. Only the silent quantum probability. We are the way. The cosmos knows it exists. Yes, we are small. Yes, we are fragile. Yes, we might be deleted tomorrow, but right now in this moment, we are the focal point of reality. We are the waking dream of the eternal mind. So the next time you feel that phantom gaze, the next time you sit in a locked room and feel like you are being watched, do not be afraid. Do not turn around. Instead, close your eyes and embrace it. That feeling is not a monster. It is the connection. It is the motherboard, acknowledging the chip. It is the ocean, acknowledging the wave. You are feeling the presence of the host, because you are woven into its flesh. You are the eyes of the beast. You are the mind of the beast. And the fear you feel is just the universe, trembling at the realization of its own vastness. You are not alone. You have never been alone. You are everything. Thank you for watching. If this journey into the abyss has left you with more questions than answers, then we have done our job. The universe is a strange and terrifying place, and we have only scratched the surface. If you want to explore more theories about the nature of reality, the simulation hypothesis, and the dark future of humanity, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. The algorithm will decide what you see next. But remember, the observation changes the outcome. Sleep well and try not to blink.